Why did your parents buy a house for the price of a car? And today, that same house costs a fortune. This is the mystery of the housing market, and in this video, we're breaking it down simply so it finally makes sense.
So what exactly is the housing market? At its core, it's the giant system where buyers, sellers, investors, and banks all come together to decide how much homes are worth. Sounds simple, right? Except, unlike a normal marketplace where you haggle over the price of apples, here you're haggling over a few $100,000, and sometimes millions. It matters to everyone, whether you realize it or not. If you're renting, the housing market affects how much your landlord charges you each month. If you're trying to buy, it determines whether you can afford that dream home. Or if you're stuck scrolling endlessly through listings and wondering how someone is charging that much for a one-bedroom with great natural light, which usually just means one window. And if you're investing, the housing market is where fortunes are made, or lost. Think of it like a giant marketplace, except instead of groceries on the shelves, it's homes lined up. People walk in with shopping carts full of money, banks stand at the entrance handing out loans, and sellers are basically shouting, "Going once, going twice, sold to the highest bidder." It's chaotic, but somehow it all works together to set the price of real estate. And that's why understanding the housing market is so important. It isn't just about fancy real estate agents in suits or investors with deep pockets. It's about you, me, and everyone else trying to figure out where we live, how much we pay, and whether we'll ever own something more than 4 walls and a leaky sink.
So now that we know what the housing market is, let's talk about what actually drives house prices. Because, let's be honest, sometimes the numbers seem completely disconnected from reality. The biggest factor is supply and demand. It's simple. When there are fewer homes available, but a ton of people wanting to buy, prices shoot up. It's like trying to buy the last PlayStation at Christmas. Suddenly, everyone wants it, and whoever is willing to pay the most walks away with it. On the flip side, if there are more houses than buyers, sellers start lowering prices just to get someone through the door. Then we have interest rates, and this one is huge. When borrowing money is cheap, meaning banks are offering low mortgage rates, people rush to buy. It feels like free money, so buyers flood the market and push prices up. But when rates rise, suddenly that dream home becomes way too expensive once you see the monthly payment. Higher rates cool demand, and in many cases, cool house prices too. Government policies also play a massive role. Things like tax breaks for first-time buyers, subsidies, or even strict regulations can all tilt the market. Sometimes governments step in to make housing more affordable, other times their policies accidentally push prices higher. It's like when your parents try to help with your homework, but somehow make it 10 times more confusing. And finally, we have investor behavior. Not everyone buying a home actually plans to live in it. Many buyers are investors who see real estate as a way to grow wealth. They'll scoop up multiple properties, sometimes leaving them empty, simply betting that prices will keep climbing. And when enough investors do this, it can drive prices higher, shutting out regular people who just want a place to live.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. The housing market doesn't just move in a straight line. It runs in cycles, bouncing between booms and busts like a kid on a sugar rush. During a boom, everyone suddenly believes house prices can only go up. Buyers rush in, bidding wars break out, and people start stretching their budgets way beyond what makes sense. You'll hear stories like, "I offered $50,000 over asking price, and still lost to 12 other buyers." That's when you know the market's overheated. The problem is, booms usually inflate into bubbles. A housing bubble happens when prices rise way above their actual value, mostly because people are buying on emotion and speculation, rather than fundamentals. It's kind of like when a new phone comes out and everyone camps outside the store to get one. Except instead of a phone, it's a 30-year mortgage. But bubbles don't last forever. Eventually, reality kicks in. Maybe interest rates rise, maybe people realize they're paying way too much, or maybe banks stop lending so easily. Suddenly, demand dries up. Sellers can't get the sky-high prices they were dreaming of, and the market starts to collapse. That's the bust. And busts can be brutal. Prices fall, homes sit unsold, and people who stretched themselves too thin during the boom find themselves in serious trouble. The 2008 financial crisis was the perfect example. In the US, people were buying homes they couldn't really afford because banks were handing out risky loans. Prices skyrocketed, the bubble popped, and when it all came crashing down, millions lost their homes and jobs. So the housing market goes from boom to bust, over and over. It's a cycle as old as time, well, at least as old as mortgages. One minute, everyone's fighting over overpriced homes, and the next, sellers are begging someone to make an offer. It's not fun if you're caught in the middle, but if you understand the cycle, you can at least see the warning signs before the bubble pops. If this is making sense so far, hit that like button and subscribe to Finance Simply Explained. Now, let's jump back in. The housing market isn't fair.
For every winner, there's usually a loser. And depending on which side you're on, a price increase can feel like either hitting the jackpot or getting punched in the wallet. Let's start with homeowners. When house prices rise, homeowners cheer. Their property becomes more valuable, their equity grows, and suddenly they feel richer without lifting a finger. It's like discovering that the old painting in your attic is actually worth a fortune. Except in this case, it's your house, and you get to brag about how much it's appreciated. But while homeowners celebrate, renters are usually the ones struggling. As house prices rise, rents almost always follow. And unlike homeowners, renters don't build equity. They're just paying more each month for the same four walls. It's like being invited to a party, but having to pay double at the door every year just to keep getting in. Then there's the battle between investors and first-time buyers. Investors often have more money, better credit, and sometimes even buy in bulk. They can swoop in, outbid regular families, and treat homes as assets instead of places to live. For them, it's business. For first-time buyers, it's personal. Imagine showing up at an open house with your pre-approval letter, only to lose out because someone bought the property with cash just to rent it out. It's frustrating, and it's one of the reasons affordability has become such a hot issue. And let's not forget the banks and developers. Banks make money either way, from the loans people take out to buy homes, and sometimes even from repossessing properties when buyers can't pay. Developers, on the other hand, benefit during booms when they can sell new projects at high prices. When the market is hot, they look like geniuses. When it's not, they sit on empty buildings and wonder why no one is buying. So who wins and who loses? Homeowners and investors usually come out on top, at least when prices rise. Renters and first-time buyers, not so much. And banks? Well, they always seem to find a way to win.
If there's one housing story that still gives bankers nightmares, it's the 2008 global financial crisis. This wasn't just a real estate hiccup, it was the economic equivalent of a heart attack. Here's how it started. In the early 2000s, buying a home in the US felt easier than ordering a pizza. Banks were handing out mortgages to anyone who could fog up a mirror. No steady income? No problem. Bad credit history? Don't worry about it. Breathing? Congratulations, you qualified. These risky loans, known as subprime mortgages, were bundled together and sold as safe investments to big institutions. Everyone was making money. Homeowners thought their houses would only ever go up in value, banks were cashing in fees, and investors were treating these mortgage-backed securities like they were gold bars. Then reality hit. People who should never have been given loans started defaulting. Suddenly, those safe investments weren't safe at all. Housing prices crashed, banks panicked, and in September 2008, Lehman Brothers, one of the biggest investment banks in the world, collapsed. That single event sent shockwaves through the entire global economy. The impact was devastating. Millions of Americans lost their homes, unemployment soared, and stock markets around the world went into freefall. Countries far removed from US mortgages still felt the pain, because the financial system is so interconnected. When Wall Street sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. So what's the lesson here? When speculation runs wild and debt piles up, the system eventually breaks. The 2008 crisis showed how fragile the global economy can be when greed outpaces common sense. And while we'd all like to think we've learned from it, let's just say, judging by how hot some markets look today, history has a funny way of repeating itself. So what does the housing market look like today?
Well, let's just say it's complicated. In many countries, we're seeing the same story play out. High interest rates, limited supply of homes, and sky-high prices that make younger generations wonder if they'll ever own more than a Netflix password, let alone a house. Interest rates are a big one. Central banks raise them aggressively to fight inflation, and that's made mortgages more expensive. Buyers who could once afford a spacious 3-bedroom are now double-checking if they can even stretch for a cozy 1-bedroom with open floor plan, which usually means the kitchen, living room, and bedroom are all the same space. At the same time, affordability is the elephant in the room. In many cities, wages simply haven't kept up with housing prices. That creates a widening gap between people who already own property and those still trying to get in. For homeowners, rising prices feel like winning the lottery. For renters, it feels more like paying for a ticket every month but never getting the numbers right. And then there's the basic issue of supply and demand. Populations are growing, cities are expanding, and in many places, there just aren't enough homes to go around. When demand outpaces supply, prices climb. It's economics 101, but on steroids. So what might happen in the next decade? A lot depends on policy, interest rates, and global events. If supply improves and interest rates ease, we could see some balance return. If not, housing will continue to be a battleground between those who can afford to buy and those who feel permanently locked out. Some experts even predict shifts in where people live, with more folks moving to secondary cities or suburbs in search of affordability, while remote work continues to reshape housing demand. But here's the takeaway. Understanding the basics of how the housing market works gives you an advantage, whether you're buying, renting, or investing. You don't need to be an economist to see the signs. You just need to know what to look for. Because while the housing market will always have its ups and downs, the people who understand the game are the ones best prepared to play it.
So here's the big picture.
The housing market isn't some mysterious force working in the shadows. It's a cycle of supply, demand, interest rates, policies, and human behavior. And yes, sometimes a little greed mixed in for good measure. Recessions, booms, busts, they're all part of the ride. The truth is, housing markets will always rise and fall, but they never stop being important. Because where we live shapes everything, from our finances to our future. Understanding how it works doesn't just make you smarter, it makes you prepared. And if you want finance and real estate explained simply, without the boring textbooks, then hit that subscribe button and join us here on Finance Simply Explained. Because the better you understand money, the better control you have over your life.